Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Oh, they're getting desperate. At this point, honestly, I think it's pathetic. Really come up with something new. Or maybe my advice to the Democrat Party and leftists in general, try being genuine for a change. Of course, they'll never do that because if they're genuinely themselves, well, they'd probably never win an election ever again. So no, instead it's always the same recycled crap, the same fake narratives, the same pathetic spin. They've tried everything at this point. And really over the last 9 months, it's been a flurry of pathetic Democrat fake scandals and psyops. And so now they're dusting off the old strategy, one of their oldest plays, attempting to mobilize their journalists to set a new false narrative. We've never heard this before, folks. The people are turning on Donald Trump. Yeah, don't look at the polls. No, don't pay attention to the facts. Just read this Rolling Stone headline, and there you go. That's the truth. Let's take a look at this absolutely pathetic copium, shall we? And then insert some reality into the conversation that is so desperately needed. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so the Rolling Stone hits us with this, another ridiculous piece, the so-called manosphere, which, by the way, none of these creators are part of the manosphere, that boosted President Trump is now cooling on him. Oh, here we go again. Another real Republicans for Harris attempt. People are ditching Donald Trump. His biggest supporters are now ditching him. Supposedly, creators like Theo Von and Adin Ross are distancing themselves from the president, but this, of course, I assure you, is a complete fiction. First of all, let's call this article exactly what it is. This is a coordinated distraction campaign. Every few months, as things continue to go south for the Democrats, they desperately push this exact same narrative that Donald Trump's base is eroding beneath him. First of all, nobody believes this crap or takes it seriously, and secondly, it gives us some insight into how broken left-wing thinking is. They don't seem to understand how political movements are built. From their perspective, the celebrity endorsement makes the candidate, because they're the side that buys influence. They can't get it genuinely, so instead, they either blackmail celebrities to do their bidding, endorse us, or at least shut up, or we'll destroy your career, or they'll literally just pay them money for fake endorsements. They rely on fake social proof, and so they think this is relevant. But what they also don't seem to understand is that Donald Trump didn't win the election because of celebrity endorsements. No, if anything, he won the people over by presenting his case and being an obvious better choice than Kamala Harris, and then those who are genuine, authentic creators and commentators, well, they ended up siding with him because it was, again, the obvious, logical choice. The article itself claims that Joe Rogan, Theo Von, Adin Ross propelled Trump to the White House, as if he needed these influencers to do it. But no, it all came downstream from his ideas, his leadership, his debate performance, his policies. And now, sure, as the mandate is now being enacted, Joe Rogan is a little bit of a bleeding heart liberal. Theo Von is an eclectic character. They're not going to agree on anything. There's issues when it comes to these ICE raids that Joe Rogan has a hard time stomaching. Theo Von has some issues with Israel, whatever it is. But the idea that they've now turned on President Trump, oh, now they're Kamala voters? Give me a freaking break. This notion that Donald Trump is losing support by any measure, well, the exact opposite is true. Take a look at this latest data from Harvard-Harris. Kind of wild, right? I'm pretty sure you can instantly tell what's going on here. Each row represents one of Donald Trump's major policies, and as you can see, he has majority support on every single issue. The lowest being at 51, the highest being at 86. Whether it's immigration, tariffs, energy, the economy, foreign policy, tax cuts, spending cuts, saving, the American people are soundly behind this president. Nothing has changed. If anything, it's gotten better. Even CNN's Harry Enton basically made that argument.
You go back to October of 2024, 44% of the American public viewed him favorably. Now, despite everything, look at this, 43%, which is well within the margin of error of that 44%. And here's the thing to keep in mind. This was good enough to get Trump reelected back in 2024. And Donald Trump is basically at the same point here right now, which I think would surprise a lot of folks, especially a lot of folks on the left who very much disagree with a lot of what Donald Trump has done.
But what do you see is underneath that and driving that? Why is he basically the same?
Okay, to quote the esteemed caller Dennis Green, the former head coach in the National Football League, Donald Trump is who the voters thought he was. What are we talking about here? Well, is Trump doing what he promised in the 2024 campaign? Yes, 52%. The majority of Americans say that Donald Trump is doing what he promised compared to 48% who said no. So what essentially is going on here is the voters expected all of this from Donald Trump. The majority did, and that is why his favorable rating, simply put, has not really moved all that much compared to where it was a year ago. Trump is basically doing what the American people thought that he was going to do. Indeed, if you look at the numbers, Trump has basically the steadiest favorable rating this much through a presidency of any president on record, and it's basically where he was a year ago, good enough to get him reelected.
He admits that Trump's approval hasn't dropped at all. It's identical to the same numbers that he had, which led him to his 2024 landslide. And that's, of course, despite the nonstop negative coverage, the endless attacks. And yeah, you see that 43% number. Well, that's Harry Enton's average, which takes into account a lot of shitty pollsters. But if you look at the best pollsters, Trump is headed towards a second honeymoon period. It's kind of unheard of, to be honest. And so this idea that President Trump is cooling down, or people are cooling down on President Trump, it's not true. It's simply patently false. In fact, the exact opposite is true. You know who's actually experiencing this kind of a phenomenon? Gavin Newsom, Democrats. As even in left-wing Democrat stronghold California, voters seem to be cooling down on the Democrat Party and their beloved leader Gavin Newsom, who's leading in the primary process.
As of last month, nearly half of all voters are registered with the Democratic Party, 25% of voters are registered with the Republican Party, and 22% are no party preference. But throughout the year, there's been some changes in voter registration and with which party voters want to identify. Since February 10th, 82,000 people chose no party preference when registering to vote. There was also a jump for the Republican Party, with it gaining 48,000 voters. But Democrats only gaining 190 voters in 200 plus days. Tim, what do you see happening here?
Well, I think you see not only Republicans gaining a little bit in California, but also no party preference. We saw some gains, those independent voters. And so whether people are moving to this notion that they're not necessarily partisan, but they're ideological. They have positions on opinions, but they're not necessarily ready to join one party or the other. And I think that's instructive. And as, political folks, that's something we look at all the time.
Gavin Newsom's approval rating is falling off a frickin' cliff. And then you've got voter registration trending big time red. But of course, Rolling Stone won't write an article on that. No, they're too busy clickbaiting using celebrities to make a political point. Oh, Theo Vaughn has a slight disagreement with the Trump administration on one issue. Oh, it's over for President Trump. Mass deportations make Joe Rogan sad. Oh, it's over for President Trump. How incredibly stupid. But obviously, in the end, the truth could not be clearer. President Trump is not losing steam. No, quite to the opposite. He is gaining it. And clearly, the fake news media is trying to get ahead of that surge. And so they're trying to insert the illusion of weakness as this second wave of strength hits right ahead of the midterms. They're desperate to stop it, but again, engaging in the same boy who cried wolf nonsense, the same phony narrative building, it just ain't gonna do it. Another pathetic narrative attempt by these loser liberals. Nice try, better luck next time.